This month, 4 people flew around the moon. Bees in California were found to be responsible for saving a third of the world's food supply. And the world's oceans hit a milestone of protection that's never existed in the entire history of our species. Huge stories, and almost none of it made the news. This is your overdue dose of good news. A record that has stood for 56 years was broken in April. 4 human beings flew further from Earth than any person in history. The last time anyone flew this path was December 1972, Apollo 17. After that, 2 full generations grew up in a world where no human went further than low Earth orbit. We sent rovers to Mars and built a space station. But for those 54 years, the moon might as well have been unreachable. On April 1st, 2026, NASA's Artemis tube lifted off carrying Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Cook, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, the first non-American to fly a deep space mission.
There's no getting around it. It is a time of trepidation, and it is one of those moments where you wish them Godspeed.
10 days later, they splashed down in the Pacific off San Diego. Total distance, 694,481 miles. They broke Apollo 13's 56-year distance record, making these 4 people the farthest from Earth any human being has ever been. The mission didn't go unnoticed. While the crew was still in orbit, President Trump called them live by satellite, the first time a sitting president has spoken to astronauts beyond low Earth orbit in over 50 years.
You've made history and made all America really proud, incredibly proud. We have a lot of things to be proud of lately, but there's nothing like what you're doing.
Through the Orion window, they photographed the Earth disappearing behind the lunar surface. A small blue marble is set behind grey craters, one of the most extraordinary images ever taken by a human hand. And while eyes were fixed on the sky, a quieter discovery on the ground could turn out to matter just as much. 1 in 3 bites of food you've ever eaten exists because a bee was in the right place at the right time. In 2025, American beekeepers lost 62% of their managed honeybee colonies. The main killer is a parasite called the Varroa mite. It feeds on bees' fat body tissue, destroys their immune systems, and spreads fatal viruses through entire hives. Since it was first detected in the US in 1987, no one has found a natural solution at scale.
In June 2022, and has spread significantly since then.
In April, researchers at UC Riverside may have found one. A hybrid honeybee found only in Southern California, a genetic mix of 4 lineages, carries 68.3% fewer Varroa mites than standard commercial colonies. The team monitored 236 colonies over 4 years. The resistance is genetic, not behavioral. Mites were less attracted to hybrid larvae at just 7 days old, before adult bees could do anything to protect them. A 68.3% reduction in mite load is the difference between a colony that collapses and one that survives. The bees are fighting back, and so is the ocean. For the entirety of human history, every civilization, every generation that ever lived, there's been less than 10% of the world's ocean under conservation protection. In April 2026, that changed for the first time ever. According to the UN Environment Programme, 5 million square kilometers of ocean received protected status in the last 2 years alone. That's an area larger than the entire European Union, added in a single 24-month window. The total crossed 10.01% for the first time in history. The UN High Seas Treaty also came into force in January 2026, the first international agreement ever focused specifically on protecting marine biodiversity in international waters. The ocean produces more than half the oxygen on Earth, absorbs a quarter of all CO2 emissions, and feeds 3 billion people. This is not a symbolic number.
So this is a real milestone. In order to reach the 30% by 2030 target, that means protecting an area equivalent to the entire Indian Ocean in just the next 4 years.
The global target is 30% by 2030, and the world just proved it can move fast when it decides to. That same lesson was learned in China over 40 years, and this month it paid off. The animal that became the global symbol of everything humanity was destroying just came back from the edge. At its lowest point, fewer than 1,000 wild giant pandas survived. It was disappearing from the only places it could exist, the mountainous Sichuan, Shaanxi and Gansu provinces of China. where there are dense bamboo forests that could sustain its growth. In late 2025, the IUCN officially downgraded the giant panda from endangered to vulnerable. China built 67 nature reserves covering more than 2.5 million hectares of habitat, an area the size of Belgium, kept wild specifically so this animal could exist. Wild populations have grown to approximately 1,900 individuals, a 17% increase over the last decade. One of the defining conservation failures of the 20th century just became one of the most significant recoveries of the 21st. And the internet noticed.
After decades of intensive conservation work, the beloved giant panda is no longer classified as endangered.
Guys, pandas are no longer endangered. I'm literally about to cry, and y'all may think it's not that deep. It is that deep.
Greatest things I've seen in a long time, that pandas are no longer in danger, which I thought was amazing.
And it's not just nature making a comeback. In April, one of the world's most stubborn legal injustices finally gave way. Until April 2026, Japan was the only G7 nation where divorce meant one parent, almost always the mother, could legally cut the other out of their child's life forever. 1 in 3 Japanese children with divorced parents eventually lost all contact with a non-custodial parent. An entire generation of kids growing up with a parent-shaped hole in their lives and no law to fix it. In April 2026, that changed. Japan revised its civil code to allow divorced couples to seek joint custody in family courts. And crucially, parents who divorced before the change can now apply to have their arrangements reviewed.
And there is no automatic preference, it'll go case by case. So what does this joint custody actually look like? Major decisions like where the child lives, what schools they go to, or medical treatments will need both parents' consent.
In 1996, scientists completed a full 3D anatomical map of the penis. Surgeons have relied on it ever since. It took medicine another 30 years to do the same for the clitoris.
And you might wonder, why is this coming so late? The Guardian explains that a cultural taboo around female sexuality has persisted for decades and has held back scientific research, and the clitoris only entered standard textbooks in the 20th century, way later than the penis.
Researchers at the Amsterdam University Medical Center published the world's first complete 3D map of the clitoral nerve network in April 2026. The kind of precision that guides surgeons and determines what medical schools teach. It didn't exist before now, not because the science was beyond reach, but because the priority wasn't there. Here is what Dr. Nigat Arif had to say.
And medics were taught that all this structure and the nerve endings was wrong all along, and we were never taught about it accurately.
An estimated 200 million women alive today are survivors of female genital mutilation. Surgeons performing reconstructive procedures have been working without a complete anatomical picture of what they were trying to repair. That changes now. 30 years late, but here. And speaking of things that took too long, clean energy just crossed a threshold the world has been waiting on for decades. In 2009, the Bishop Paiute tribe sent a letter asking to be connected to the internet. They had 2,200 citizens living in the eastern Sierra Nevada with no reliable access, and they believed someone would eventually listen. Nobody did. Children grew up without it, elders couldn't reach doctors remotely, and students consistently fell behind peers in connected communities. More letters were sent, more meetings were attended, more applications were filed, and 17 years went by without an answer. On April 2nd, 2026, California turned on the nation's largest open access public broadband network, and the Bishop Paiute tribe was chosen as its very first customer. Not a city, not a corporation, a Native American tribe that has spent nearly 2 decades asking and refusing to stop. This is Emma Williams, chairman of the Bishop Paiute tribe.
We are the first tribe in California to connect to California's middle mile broadband network.
The digital divide is one of those problems the world has acknowledged for decades, while doing very little about it. Students were among the first to log on that day, and here's what Lily had to say about what it meant for the community.
I'm able to complete school online and not remotely and not always have to go in person. I'm able to have broader access to a lot of resources from my tribe.
In April 2026, one tribe that started asking in 2009 proved that persistence, not patience, is what eventually forces the answer. Now here's a fact that almost no major news outlet will put on its front page. The world is safer from terrorism right now than at any point in the last 20 years.
So overall, we saw a reduction in the number of terrorist deaths last year by about 20% in the number of terrorist incidences as well.
The 2026 Global Terrorism Index tracks 163 countries and is the most comprehensive terrorism dataset in the world. Its latest report found that deaths from terrorism fell 28% in 2025 to 5,582, the lowest figure since 2007. Look at this chart. Every line is a different region of the world. See that spike around 2014 and 2015? That's the ISIS crisis at its worst, nearly 11,000 deaths in a single year. Now look at where every single line sits in 2025, all of them down, some of them near zero. In 2025, deaths from terrorism dropped 49% from the worst year. 81 countries recorded a decline, only 19 saw a deterioration, the lowest count in the index's entire history. The trend is independently verified and consistent over nearly a decade. The world is measurably getting safer from this. And that's the macro view. But this month, science did something that no statistic can capture. Let's have a look. There is a type of deafness where the silence is absolute. Children born with this condition cannot hear anything, not a voice, not a sound, not an explosion next to their ear. It's caused by a single missing gene, and for their entire lives, nothing has been able to fix it, until this month. In the largest trial of its kind, published in Nature on April 22nd, 90% of participants reported significant improvement in their hearing after receiving a single injection. A gene therapy that delivers a working copy of the missing gene directly into the inner ear. The trial involved 42 people across 8 sites in China, mostly children, and the improvements lasted years. Here's how this little boy progressed.
He heard his name for the first time.
Yeah.
Then music. And months later, he learned to speak.
Mama.
This is really for the first time in the whole field a brand new treatment option for genetic hearing loss, said the lead researcher. One injection, a missing gene replaced, and children who were born into silence hearing the world for the first time. A lunar flyby, bees fighting back, an ocean finally protected, a panda pulled from the edge, millions of children in Japan who might get a parent back, a tribe that asked for 17 years and got their answer, and children born into complete silence hearing the world for the first time. None of this made the front page. The world has problems, but it also has people solving them, every single month, in places the news will never find. So which story hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments down below, subscribe if you want this every month, and we'll see you in May.